His empty glass in hand, Alex approached the bar, his view of the windowless bathroom and hall perfect. So if his drunk Mark tried to leave out the back, Alex would know without hovering too close and tipping Jake off. The redhead behind the bar ignored him until he cleared his throat. 3 times. When she finally turned around, it was with a sour twist to her lovely Cupid's bow lips. Up this close, he marveled at how ethereal she appeared, how delicate. Like she was a princess out of one of the illustrated fairy tales his mother had read to him when he was young. Her eyes were captivating, the brightest cornflower blue he'd ever seen, rimmed in a thin line of navy and framed with long red gold lashes. She snapped him out of his silent appreciation when she spoke with a terse American accent.
Can I help you?
He raised a brow, and a slight blush pinked her cheeks. He enjoyed that color on her. Porcelain skin like hers would show her every emotion and every spank of his hand. He forced his voice to remain calm, even though desire tightened his gut. Another dark lager. When he gave her his most charming smile, her frown grew even more pronounced. Either his charisma was gone, or this woman did not like him for some reason. Without another word, she turned and got his drink as quickly as she could. He kept his gaze on the bathroom, which now had a line forming, while waiting for Jake to come out. The slam of his beer on the bar, accompanied by a small splash of liquid onto his hand, drew his gaze back to her instantly. Her eyes darted to his wet hand, and she sighed, then said in a softer voice,
Sorry about that. Let me get something to clean you up with.
When she looked up at him through her lashes, the need for her touch overwhelmed him, but he had a feeling she'd bolt if he attempted to so much as caress her cheek. Is all right. She blinked at him, some of her ire melting away as curiosity took its place. He held her gaze and found himself unable to look away, drawn to her obvious inquisitiveness, like a moth to the flame. A tingle of electricity moved through him, and he rubbed the suddenly sensitive tips of his fingers against the smooth edge of the glass holding his beer. Even though she was pretty with her high cheekbones and pouty pink lips, it was the spirit shining in her unguarded gaze that captured him. It had been a long time since he'd been around a woman who had so few barriers between herself and the world. He wondered who this American girl was and what she was doing here in Peter Cleary's pub. Usually Peter's girls were more experienced. Many of them happily entertained Peter's men, but this woman didn't strike him as the type to spread her legs for a bunch of thugs. When she continued to stare at him, he cleared his throat. Towel?
What? Oh, yeah, right.
He had to hide his smile as she fetched a clean towel and returned to the bar with pink cheeks. Jake had yet to appear, but Alex could care less about the $250,000 hit at the moment. The only thing he could focus on was how soft and good her slender fingers felt against his hand, even if she was wiping him down as quickly as possible. More of that unusual but not unpleasant electricity arced between them as she quickly cleaned him. If this rare chemistry between them carried over into the bedroom, fucking her would be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Desire clouded his mind, and his accent thickened. What is your name? Her voice came out quiet but firm.
None of your business.
My name is Alex Gorev. It was actually Alex Novikov, but he strictly went by aliases while in Western Europe, and was known in this area of the world as Gorev. She arched a delicate brow at him, then snorted.
I've been warned about you.
She had such an adorable scowl when she said that, and his cock thickened. If she was his submissive, he'd be fucking her sassy little mouth right now. Warned?
Yep.
She glowered at him, her fingers tapping on her arm, the thick silver ring she wore on her thumb flashing in the warm light. He wondered if she'd been warned about his darker, carnal habits, or his being a high-ranking member of the Novikov Bratva. It was hard to contain his anger, something unusual for him, as he spoke louder than he intended. Who warned you? What did they say? She seemed taken aback, her jaded expression slipping, leaving one of alarm as he snarled at her. Evidently, the young woman had not been around many men who raised their voices, if her wide eyes were any indication. He would have to keep the fact that she was unused to dealing with a man like him in mind in the future. Gentling his tone as much as he could, his voice still came out unusually low as he said, "Tell me, what has been said about me? I deserve to know." While they were talking, the wait at the bar for a drink had built up, leaving the other bartender giving the beautiful redhead some pointed looks. With a sigh, the woman he was strangely obsessed with crossed her arms beneath her small breasts, pressing the fabric against them, giving Alex a great view of her thick, stiff nipples. He watched her succulent lips part to speak and imagined kissing her while she whispered her naughty secrets to him, in the dark, of all the things she wanted him to do with her.
Look, buddy, you have the reputation of going through women like toilet paper. So please spare me your attempts at being charming. I don't care to have you wipe your ass with me, as I've been shit on enough by the world in general these last few years. So move along. This?
She waved her hand in his direction.
Ain't happening.
He inwardly winced at her analogy. Evidently, the women he'd bedded here had been talking, not that he should be surprised. Not many women were happy when they discovered he had no interest in them for anything other than sex and friendly companionship. He'd never dated a woman, never saw a need to. He wasn't ready to settle down, and no woman had interested him for more than a month or two at most, unless they were fine with just fucking. A glance showed the line for the bathroom was longer than ever, but he barely paid attention. His focus was on this mysterious American who was resisting him, not something he was used to with a woman. The situation would be amusing if it wasn't happening to him. It only made him want her all the more. Adding a touch of seduction to his gaze, he watched her closely, now only dimly aware of the line for the bathroom growing. "Do you believe everything that is told to you?" She laughed, the melody of her joy immediately bringing a smile to his face and everyone's within hearing distance. She might not physically turn heads, but her merriment made her irresistible. It even made him smile, which he rarely did in public. He was sure he'd smiled more during this conversation at a crowded bar than he had in months. If Dimitri could see him right now, he'd be laughing his ass off at how foolish Alex was behaving as he pursued the bartender. The Novikov brothers didn't chase women. Women chased them. Or at least, they usually did. Tossing her hair over her shoulder, the warm red highlights glinting beneath the brighter lights behind the bar, she held up her finger to the other bartender, indicating she'd only be a minute, then turned back to him with an impatient expression, making a furrow between her eyebrows.
I'm sure you know you're amazingly hot for an old guy.
If he'd been drinking his lager, he would have choked. "Old guy, I am 29. She'd held up her hands, silver bangles glinting on her slender arms.
Hey, whatever. To a 20-year-old, that's like ancient.
Had she just called him ancient? A growl escaped him, but instead of being scared, she laughed again.
Like I said, as good-looking as you are, I bet women are throwing their panties at you everywhere you go. So why don't you bother one of them? I'm not trying to slut-shame you. You do what you have to do. But I don't like people who break hearts, and I'm not interested in a one-night stand.
Instead of acknowledging that women did indeed throw themselves at him everywhere he went and that he broke hearts, he shrugged, deciding silence was the best option, although he was curious as to what slut-shaming was. She smirked when he didn't say anything.
I'll let you know right now that I have absolutely no time for players. In fact, they disgust me. You, buddy, are barking up the wrong tree. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a job to do.
With that, she lifted her pert nose and turned, her waist-length hair swishing behind her in a way that reminded him of how a cat would flick its tail, as she stalked away with an irritated twitch of her lips.